Alright, the next video here is going to be based off of how to make sure your time is in to make your timesheets proper and things of that nature. So during the week, you want to be keeping a written record of what you have done with your time throughout the day. Autotask keeps track of everything in 15-minute increments, so that is how you want to be keeping track of your time entry as well. Come 8 o'clock, you want to know at any given time during the day what you're doing from 8 to 8:15, 11 to 11:45, and so on. Now, you will run into different times where you have different things that will need to be modified later, or things that you will need to put in as an afterthought. Now, you take a phone call, it rings, you've got an incoming incident, you immediately create the ticket, immediately put in the time, it's already in the system. Other than just making sure your time for that day is up to date at the end of the day, you can kind of forget about it. Autotask has already taken care of it for you. But as you're working on other things, such as training on site or things that just have you away from your desk, it is not as always so easy to keep track of it, as Autotask isn't constantly putting them in for you. Now, where I'm at right now, from the main screen, I can go to the timesheets, and it will keep track of my time for the current timesheet that I'm on. Now, we're towards the beginning of one, so I'm only on day 3 of it. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple of things that are off on here, where I've got all kinds of time set up for one day, which I can click on the ticket, it'll bring up just editing that ticket. Or I can click, that's if I click on a time entry itself. I can click on the ticket itself at the number and open it up where I can go into it and do anything I'd normally do, add time, edit times, and deleting time entries, attachments, and so on. But it will give me a nice breakdown per day of where everything is for the time entry. Now, if I'm wondering, so yesterday on the 17th, it says I had 10 hours and 15 minutes of time entry in. So I can take a look at, and if I had only been working for 8 hours, I can look at the tickets that I have the time entry in and see where I have thrown it off if I need to. An example would be, looking directly at it, I see this time entry for these machines, I'd be like, alright, well, I've got 4 hours, 75 minutes. I'd want to open it up and look at the time entry on it just to see where everything's at. And in the case of this one, headed on site, worked on things while on site, alright, that makes more sense why it was several hours worth. Alright, heading back again, looking at, say, time for today, I see that it is now, we're going on 5 o'clock, so the 8-hour mark for the day. We want that to ideally be at 8 hours. Now, I've got, just from natural time entries for things that I've worked on and closed up, I've got a couple hours in, but I don't have all of the time. So that will need to be fixed here. Now, depending on what it is, I can go to New, and then regular time, and you can break it down if it's not connected to a ticket. Say if we had a meeting that lasted an hour, I'd choose that as the category. Here's today's date, type in 1 because it's by the hour, and then I could put in company meeting. As soon as I hit save and close, it'll automatically add that to my list here, and it will know that that is indeed what I was doing. And then see, it has the time in here. You could do the same with personal time. You could do it with any of the things. Personal time, I'm guessing I've got a day, right at the end of this pay period where I have the day off for whatever reason I took it off. It is keeping track of that for me. Now, say another one, which could be the case. And for me, this is part of the case right now. I've got regular time, and I've got training. Say if I had done 1 hour of training, either myself learning or teaching someone else something, No, I would type in 1.5 or whatever the time is and write what kind of training I was doing. Now it could be Autotask training. Alright, and in the case of this, I had been doing that and had been doing that for the last couple hours. And I was putting in documentation as well. And for the most part, that's what I was doing. I was making these videos and I was creating documentation as I go. Clean it up a little bit, but we can tell by looking at that that's what it was. Save and close. And that's getting things closer here by the time I have that. Now, company meeting one, I don't actually need. That was just an example. I can go in and delete it and close it up. Alright, in this case, it doesn't let you go down to nothing on every day, or else it doesn't know what to do. So I will just plain delete it. Alright, outside of that, just by looking at your tickets, say if you had your notes in a notepad document, which I sometimes do, you might have them written down. When you're on site, you should be keeping track of it in one way or another, what you're working on while you're there, what times. Come in afterwards, either go into your service desk, find your tickets, put the time in, or you can go into your timesheet, look at the tickets you've been working on, look at your time differences, and find them, click on them, add the time in. If you have any tickets where you have not created a ticket yet, make sure you go into the new ticket, create it, get your time entered for the days that you have it entered. You do not want to fall behind in time. The further back it goes, the harder it is to catch up. And you might lose your documentation, your mind will forget what you did that day, the days will start blurring together where Tuesday last week, Monday last week, I know one of the days I had worked on such and such, which time was that again? You want to have it written down because your documentation won't lie unless you wrote it incorrectly at that time. In the end, just make sure that your total hours equals the time that you have indeed worked for that day. If you have an 8-hour day, make sure it says 8 at the end. If you stayed after, worked on something extra, make sure that it meets up with that. If you had a partial day, say you worked a 8 to noon and you had 4 hours off, well, make sure that it still goes up to your 8-hour mark, because that's what we're based off of. But put in that it's personal time, that if that's the case. And you'll have to use your PTO for it. As long as in the end it equals out. And as far as most of us, we have to have it equal to 8 or more in order to keep everything proper. An hourly employee, just make sure it equals what you have worked.